Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and it looks like we got something close to a normal week here, albeit busy, and it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. Alright, for what it's worth, given a very tumultuous first half of 2024, I think the charts are back to some modicum of normal, at least for 1 week, because I think there's a very real possibility we might see album bomb activity from Luke Combs next week, because he can just do that now. Possibly Don Toliver as well, maybe even Suicide Boys. But as we head into the summer, even if the Hot 100 is busy, it feels like the normal kind of busy, minus any major release, or industry upheaval, or career-shattering beef. And as someone who is really trying to keep to a schedule with some big projects coming up before the mid-year, I'm going to take whatever additional breathing room I can get. Now, of course, the Hot 100 still feels eventful, and that starts off in our top 10, where to my surprise, I had some help by Post Malone featuring Morgan Wallen actually held the #1 spot. Now, this is mostly a factor of stable momentum and established presence. Streaming held up, and it's only continuing to pick up traction on the radio, even if sales did slip a little bit, and that was just enough to hold the #1 for this week, although likely not for the next. And that's because of our new challenger debuting in the top 10, Please 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 by Sabrina Carpenter at #2. I'll talk more about the song later on, but she saw the biggest impact on streaming with reasonably good sales, but this is where the radio already servicing 2 of her songs kinda hurts her, because pushing a third doesn't tend to work except those with the A-list name recognition. Now, with enough streaming next week, it probably won't matter, but it could be a factor. All I'm saying. And for a prime example, we got Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter at #3, where of course she saw a symbiotic boost on streams with actually better sales, but the radio is just continuing to grow. With the right push, this maybe could have gotten a #1 on its own, but Sabrina Carpenter's label appears to want a sure bet rather than any more major surprises that blunt the momentum. Then we got a bar song, Tipsy by Shabuzi, continuing to hold up pretty well at #4, thank great sales, a streaming boost, and now radio is firmly on board in a big way for it. And hell, that was enough to hold over $1 Million Baby by Tommy Richmond at #5, which actually saw streaming losses even as its radio traction is now just going through the roof. We have a slightly similar case for Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar at #6. Although it does have better streaming, the radio has been considerably slower to fully embrace the song in order to nobody's surprise. And that takes us to Too Sweet by Hozier, currently at #7. Where the radio is still ridiculously strong, but streaming and sales, they are starting to slip downwards. So this may not get much further with the competition that's all around it, and hey, it got to #1, I'm not sure Hozier cares. But it did hold up over Houdini by Eminem down at #8, where despite good sales, the streaming dropped sharply and the radio push has been a little bit sluggish. I'm certainly not going to complain, the song's not that good. Then we got an entry into the top 10 that did make me chuckle a bit. Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish at #9. Turns out the label wasn't quite prepared for this to be the song that went viral, so they have been slow to ship it to the radio, but with streaming being so damn solid, I can't imagine they're going to complain that much. Finally, Lose Control by Teddy Swims is clinging on to #10, because while streaming is actually pretty solid, which is going to slow its downward descent, the radio and sales have fully tipped into the downswing. It's just going to take its time with its exit. And that naturally takes us to our losers and our dropouts. And the latter group, it really all was just Taylor Swift losing this week with the deep cuts, as The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, Florida with Florence and the Machine, and The Tortured Poets Department, they all exited the charts. Yes, I know, I'm a little bit exasperated that Florida has not been pushed for this glorious summer run, but none of us could be that lucky. It also translates to some of our losers, because Taylor Swift also saw a bunch of losses here. I Can Do It With a Broken Heart at 44, Who's Afraid of Little Old Me at 72, Guilty as Sin at 80, But Daddy I Love Him at 85, My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys at 86, and So Long London at 88. And alongside her, we got the expected album bomb losses for Billie Eilish. Blue at 66, The Greatest at 81, Skinny at 90, and The Diner at 91, and the expected fade for the beef tracks, with Euphoria by Kendrick Lamar down to 47, and Family Matters by Drake all the way at 98. Now the rest are a mixed bag. Enough Miami by Cardi B lost all its gains at 75. Carnival by Kanye West, Ty Dolla $ign, Playboi Carti, and Rich the Kid tumbled to 82. Obsessed by Olivia Rodrigo just never got going at 92. And Si No Es Contigo by Chris MJ is continuing down to 93. Now this takes us to our returns and gains, and honestly it feels like an increasingly strange group here. The worst among them is the return for The Boy Is Mine by Ariana Grande, which is getting the industry push to come back at 64. Supernatural is right goddamn there. What are you doing? But when we switch over to our gains, I'm also not exactly thrilled by Tucker Wetmore getting a bump across the board, with Wind Up Missin' You at 63 and Wine Into Whiskey at 78. But it is kind of hard to complain about the rest. Sweet Dreams by Cole Wetzel is seeing a little bit traction at 35, likely tied to another debut this week, we'll get to it. Nasty by Tinashe is seeing real traction at 69 off the debut. And most pleasingly, Hot to Go by Chappell Roans at 68. It also comes alongside Red Wine Supernova getting a bit of traction. This could be a larger thing across the board. That's exciting. And it takes us to our new arrivals. We got a pretty healthy list of them, so alright, let's get this started with number 100, Hang Tight Honey by Lainey Wilson. The exasperating thing about Music Row's habit of slow-walking singles up the radio is that we can get a new song from Lainey Wilson, and I have to go and check to see whether or not it's from a new album or just a very late push. Now, apparently this is the lead-off single for that new album called Whirlwind. It's supposed to be out this year, reportedly pushing for more of a rock direction with just Jay Joyce behind the boards. And yeah, with that blockier drum mix and the vocals pushed a little bit deeper than you might prefer, you can absolutely tell Jay Joyce is involved, even if the choppy acoustics, the charging bass line, the revving spikes of electric guitar, and the fast enough tempo do keep the groove moving. Although that 4-bar bridge trying for a little bit of funk, it kind of stalls out and misses the mark for me. Now as for the content, it's a road song, where Lainey Wilson's playing a lot of ruckus parties, but can't wait to get home to her partner, and it always kind of makes me chuckle that it's the former third-string Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, Devlin/Duck Hodges. Looks to be a fan favorite in more ways than one, apparently. Now either way, I think the production might cut back on this song's overall staying power for me, but you know what? It's a fine enough lead-off single. It's not great, certainly likable. If you're curious, worth a listen. Number 97, Never Let Go by Jungkook.
Never let go, 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 go. Never let go, 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 go. Never let go, 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 go.
The more Jungkook solo songs I see, the more I wonder if we're ever going to get that BTS reunion to swamp the Hot 100 again. Apparently it's targeted for 2025 after all their military service time is completed, but in the meantime we've got this, which, funnily enough, is a deliberate love letter to the fans and a plea for them to hold on, for them to come together and reunite. And you know what, it's fine. Jungkook's English diction has gotten a lot sharper with time, and his willowy voice balances out well against the fluttery and bleeping synths, the acoustic touches, that supple wail of bass, and the gentle gallop of the tapping drum machines. I think where the song slightly loses me might be the hook. The stutter to go feels like the wrong word to emphasize and a plea for folks to actually stick around, and when the vocal line feels so touched up around it, I just don't get that same connect. I don't think Jungkook needs that. Now for those in the army who might have stuck around for this long, the song might have greater resonance. For me, just okay. Number 96, Beautiful As You by Thomas Rhett.
I swear, girl, you could have anyone you choose. I should stop asking questions before you get a Bentley.
You know, I've been thinking about this. I've been reviewing Thomas Rhett in some form for over 10 years, from his bro country days to the overpolished and generally bland boyfriend country he's making now. He's now extremely in that comfort zone, and that might work for national radio, but I can't help but think that he's been long eclipsed and passed over. So when I see him working with some pretty obvious pop songwriters like Julian Bonetta and John Ryan, who I know more from working with One Direction, I knew his little neo-traditional adventure career might be over, and this song proves it. Let's make this clear. The only reason this is going to wind up on Nashville radio is because his name, it's Thomas Rhett. Because this is a pop song, being predominantly anchored in the piano, that lockstep drum machine, the sampled vocal flourish that sounds like something you would hear in a mid-2010s Justin Bieber song, that brittle acoustic guitar. I'm sorry, it does not make this country. Now then there's the lyrics. I would just call this another dull Thomas Rhett love song about his wife, and I did appreciate the detail that he should probably stop asking why this girl is with him already, but I'm not sure how that makes up for saying that she's the dream even if we count in girls in magazines, which feels both more dated and clunky than it really should. Look, I could get a lot more annoyed about how this is getting shipped to country radio on lingering nepotism and flying in the face of any genre conventions. Music Row makes the exceptions when they want to. But let's be real, there's a lot less of whatever Thomas Rhett is doing hitting the charts these days. It's borderline bubblegum. Besides, I'd rather keep my annoyance and anger for number 77, All My Life by Falling in Reverse and Jelly Roll.
I'm doing my best to get it together.
You know, I think I'm about done making excuses for Jelly Roll, because a couple passable songs and a good redemption story don't make up for falling back into bad habits, or in any way working with Ronnie Radke. Apparently there's a new Falling in Reverse album coming out this year. I'm not going to cover it because, quite frankly, I have better things to do. But apparently, with nearly the entire band replaced since the last album, I had no clue what this was going to sound like. And after listening to it, it's Kid Rock. It's just Kid Rock, capturing that brief window where there was some crossover between the country and the rap rock sound, with any actual intensity or edge sandblasted away. The guitars are wildly overcompressed, there's no groove, the drums sound very airless and clunky even as they try to sneak in that drum machine. There's even scratching and a bunch of whooshing effects that are dumped all over this mix. It sounds really dated. The breakdown is fucking embarrassingly weak, and Jelly Roll, he sounds like he's absolutely slumming it alongside Ronnie Radke's obnoxiously fake twang. And for the content, look, I know Jelly Roll has found a lot of catharsis in the redemption arc. He can't party too hard forever, but a limp, half-formed apologetic structure from Ronnie Radke feels screamingly insincere, especially with so much of the melody being played in this summer-ready major key. It almost feels sarcastic. So look, I can't call it offensively bad, that's because there's so little to it. It feels so obviously cynical to cash in on maybe a working relationship. It's gonna have one good sales week and then vanish. Good fucking riddance. Number 73, 360 by Charli XCX.
Just looking at me, I'm everywhere, I'm so Julia. When you're in the party, bumping that beat. 666 with a princess streak. I'm everywhere, I'm so Julia.
It would be just my goddamn luck that the song that I like the least on the new Charli XCX album is the one that charts. Not saying it's bad, but it's an example of Charli's style just not connecting nearly as strongly as I would prefer. Mostly through production choices that get on my nerves. That little squirmy, glassy synth near the very top of the mix hits precisely the right frequency to feel kind of unsettling and gross, and not intentionally so, especially alongside that fat bass synth and the lead reverb melody. I mean, outside of that, the song's fine. It's a bad bitch flex where Charli XCX draws comparisons to Julia Fox and Gabriette, toying with the balance between playing glamour and trashy, playing up the brat dichotomy with the lines like 666 with a princess streak, referencing sewer sluts, the legacy of her work with A.G. Cook. It's definitely targeting a specific it girl presentation that I talked about in my review. I mean, if I have got critiques beyond that, it might be that the song might be talking a bigger game than the sound will back up. It feels a little bit too minimalist and prim to really sell any darker edge, especially given that the era it's recalling, and no, the bad production choices is not getting there and creating any sense of atmosphere. And while Charli XCX knows on some level that she is striking a pose, it doesn't feel as special or vibrant to me. I know the album's getting hyped to the moon and back thanks to a very specific review, but yeah, doesn't do a lot for me. Sorry. Number 70, Purple Gas by Zach Bryan and Noeline Hofmann.
It's pride. Maybe I'd rest before I died if I weren't the flatland boy. If I weren't the flatland boy.
The fun thing thing with Zach Bryan coming up in indie country is that he appears to remember his roots, and he's more than willing to use his platform to put people on, including folks that I should honestly know more of. And that takes us to this song and Noeline Hofmann. She's out of southern Alberta in Canada. She's an up-and-coming country singer-songwriter. She's received some extremely positive buzz from a couple festival appearances, enough that she got on Zach Bryan's radar with this song that she wrote. And while she's got a couple others on her YouTube channel right now, this is her only song on streaming. And yeah, it's really quite good. Very spare acoustics with some gentle bass and drums, and it's written from the perspective of a struggling young Canadian farmer. Purple gas is actually a reference to a specific dyed gasoline that's out on the prairies, and it's discounted for farmers or ranchers. In the States, the analog might be red diesel, and normally it's just called purple up here. And the song's got a lot of those homespun details to try to make it work with the stiff upper lip and barely even a prayer, especially when you're out in those plains. There's barely any hills to get atop of. It just looks like it all goes on forever. And look, as someone who grew up out west, the appeal of a song like this on an emotional level definitely clicks, but I will struggle to call it great. Mostly because for as much as Hofmann has a really pretty voice, her volume level's a shade lower than Zach Bryan's, and I don't think it contributes to the best of chemistry between them. It's certainly likable. Zach Bryan's got a lot of momentum to get songs that feel this deliberately indie and uncommercial to chart. I just wouldn't call this one of his best or a personal favorite. Hope this is a burst of traction for Hofmann though. Let's see where it goes. Number 58, The Man He Sees in Me by Luke Combs.
On my knee, maybe I'll finally be the man he sees in me.
I'll probably have more to say about Luke Combs' most recent Father's Day album, Fathers and Sons, that dropped last Friday and actually already reviewed on my main channel. I'll have more of it for next episode. He's probably going to see some light album impact, if not an album bomb. But in the meantime, we got this, deeply neo-traditional with the mandolin and dobro alongside those gentle acoustics, as Luke Combs sings about his desire to be as good of a father as his sons see in him. And maybe if they choose to have kids someday, maybe they'll follow in those same footsteps. And I really like the sense of detail and emotional honesty in the track, where kids will see you as someone who can just do everything, and even if you can't live up to that expectation, you desperately want to, and that hope that effort will shine through and be noticed. I mean, I don't have kids, but I do have a young niece and nephew, and I get some of that emotional resonance a lot. I've heard some critics say that the vocal mixing is a little bit too touched up for their taste. It's the sort of thing you're likely not going to notice if you're not paying attention, but if you do, it'll either bother you or you won't care, and I'm more in the latter category, even if a more organic pickup might flatter Luke Combs a bit more. But look, that is the definition of nitpicking. It's an absolutely great song. I can't wait for more of this album to chart, but in the meantime, check this out. Number 49, Close to You by Gracie Abrams.
On the gun I gave you when we met, I wanna be close to you. Break my heart and start a fire. You got me overnight. Just let me be.
You know, there is a part of me that wants to make the Nepo baby conversation about Gracie Abrams more of a thing. She's the daughter of J.J. Abrams, opening up for Olivia Rodrigo, closely followed by opening up for Taylor Swift, and first charting with the big Noah Kahan collab, to say nothing of her producer connections behind the scenes. But truth be told, her brand of hushed indie pop has been very easy for me to ignore. And even if the door is opened up for you, eventually you're actually going to need to do something with it. Her 2023 debut album was predominantly produced by Aaron Dessner, and in certain circles it did something, but I didn't have to care about it one bit. So now with this song produced with Sam DeJong, who I know most for producing a lot of really mediocre pop music, Alec Benjamin, Rabel, Duncan Lawrence, both the Bad Pale Waves and Bad Marina albums, I had rock bottom expectations, especially when I discovered that this was a song first teased from as far back as 2017. And listening to it, I get why. Because it both sounds like nothing I would expect from Gracie Abrams, and also a song that really wants to be melodrama era Lorde, with the faster patter of the fizzy drum machine, the pulsating synth, the hushed vocals, the hazy vocal snippets, and the aching for that dance floor connection. Although I'd also cite a healthy dose of 1989 era Taylor Swift here as well, and the vocal inflections around the hook. Now on the surface, I am open to that. We didn't get nearly enough melodrama era Lorde for anyone's taste, but it also reveals the big weakness of Gracie Abrams. She doesn't nearly have the personality or charisma in order to sell it. I reviewed the entire era of whispering millennial girls crossing over in pop music in the 2010s, and even the weaker ones had more energy, if not some staying power, whereas this feels very wispy, completely unable to sell the melodrama and the content, pardon the pun. It's very obviously trying for Lorde, but has nothing close to her raw intensity. So no, it's not precisely bad. I like the formula, but it has me looking for the better version of this pop pivot. Might not be a good sign. All I'm saying. Number 29, High Road by Cole Wetzel and Jessie Murph.
I'ma take the high road, take the high road, take the high road.
I swear to God, Cole Wetzel's gonna surrender all of his interesting personality for this crossover, and the fastest way to get there is working with Jessie Murph and her walking void of charisma. What the hell happened to his sense of humor and edge that he's playing this gutless country rock that sounds like it belongs in the mid-2000s, where the guitars and drums are crushed into mush? But even then, the first hook where Cole Wetzel takes the lead, I think it's fine. It's a bad relationship song where they're taking the high road in order to get fucked up and forget. It's generally lightly toxic, but you know what, if you're on a downward spiral, it makes a certain amount of sense. Then Jessie Murph shows up, her put-on twang sounding awful, and the song then has to bend over backwards to fit her BB Rexa-esque process vocal on top of Wetzel's, stripping away any spare texture of the production that we got, and even when they try to harmonize on the hook, I don't get any chemistry. Might be apropos. What's worse is that while Wetzel's more abstract in the sour musings, Murph just outright says that both are cheating on each other, and that's the natural extension of taking their high road. And I'm sorry, it does not work. It's trying to pull a somebody that I used to know and her getting more to the point, but that song worked by having a proper emotional bait and switch, with Kimbra actually cutting through Goche's whining, not just playing, well, everyone's an asshole, let's take the high road. Couple that with a very underwhelming instrumental passage. Yeah, this absolutely sucks. But it's also radio friendly enough to work. I can see this being a hit of the worst possible kind. Not saying it will be, but brace yourselves. And finally, number 2, Please 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 by Sabrina Carpenter.
Please, 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 don't bring me to tears when I just did my makeup so nice.
You know, it's not even that I dislike Sabrina Carpenter, it's that her brand of pop doesn't stick for me. And for as labored as the writing can feel to try and be so mimetic, it should work better than it does. I've watched Espresso run the sanitized Doja Cat say-so riff into the Song of the Summer territory, where I feel like I remember the quips more than the song itself, and now this is going to be challenging for the number 1 spot with a Jack Antonoff production credit, believe it or not. And yeah, I'm sorry, I really don't like this either. And for once, it's actually a little tough to pin down exactly why. Basically, it's a song about how she doesn't want her boyfriend to get drunk and then embarrass her in public, with a lot of not so subtle implications that she's talking about her actual boyfriend, Barry Keoghan, and that she's playing fast and loose with how true any of this actually is. Now, it's not a bad idea for the vintage sort of pop song that this wants to be, but there's a lot of distinctly Sabrina Carpenter flourishes that just do not click for me. She's trying to be ironic with saying that she's got good judgment and good taste, but it's got the air of self-love that you can tell she actually just unironically believes it. I'm not sure I buy that. I heard those 2010s albums where all the cutesy deflections are hiding some legit frustration and anger that this guy better not fuck up her image or her songs will devastate him. The way she says motherfucker on the hook, it captures this certain Lana Del Rey-esque venom. I know what she's trying to do. But that's the thing. While singing, Sabrina Carpenter can be a good actress. She can paint a scene, maybe add a little bit of flair to appear subversive, but she's not a great actress, because I can always tell whether it's an act in service of her ego or artifice. And that's kind of frustrating because her songs never have the flair to be great melodrama in comparison with the pop stars that actually just go for broke when you can tell they're embracing the artifice. And honestly, I don't think the production really helps her here either. The fluttery 80s synths, the chintzy electric guitar, and the frail acoustics and drums from Jack Antonoff, they feel weirdly busy, small scale, and cluttered, but also giving Carpenter just enough space that I can hear some of the questionable vocal mixing, following his tradition of giving pop acts a little bit too much space to reveal themselves, for better or for worse. And I don't know. This song has theater girl energy, but unlike, say, Chapel Roan, utterly refuses to admit it, or is actively trying to ironically disavow it. And even for folks who are enamored by the artifice and performance, yeah, I'm not there. Still not convinced, not impressed. It's fine, but I'm not going further. And that's our week. Kind of all over the place, but let's get the worst out of the way quickly. Where All My Life by Falling in Reverse and Jelly Roll. Dishonourable mention, because High Road by Cole Wetzel and Jessie Murph is the worst of the week on disappointment and my dread alone. I can hear it becoming a hit, and that is a goddamn nightmare and a half. Now, the best of the week is much more agreeable. With The Man He Sees in Me by Luke Combs, it's just gonna snag the top spot past Purple Gas by Zach Bryan and Noeline Hofmann. But the next week, well, possibly the fallout from all this, plus a fair bit more. We will have to see if we get multiple album bombs. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.